Hi, I'm Nate. I'm playing Marmoreal Marshall, the Earth Genasi cowboy. Marmoreal Marshall is a 22-year-old wanderer, or at least that's what he longs for. Truth is, he's a drifter, haunted by choices he made or felt that he had to make. The important part of his story begins when he was only 16. He ran away from an orphanage in the city of Awaga. He took his chances with Mother Nature and wandered out into the desert. After a few hours, he realized he needed transportation, as the desert was unforgiving and as wide as his eyes could see. So he began to head back. But before he even had the choice, a loud, sharp pop rang through the night sky. It was a stagecoach robbery, somewhere about a dozen miles south of Awaga. A group of masked men with 6 shooters drawn aiming at a stagecoach with 2 armored high elves sitting in the box. Before the elves could draw their weapons, a voice from one of the masked men piped in. Now, gentlemen, please. There's no need for anyone's blood to be spilled here. The other men with 6 shooters kept their guns drawn and trained on the 2 stagecoach drivers. Another one of the robbers, a much bigger one, walked to the side of the coach and used a crowbar to bust open the door. Marmoreal, crouched behind a rock, mouth agape at what was transpiring. "Are you fools?" the driver cried, hand still placed on the hilt of his sword, ready to attack. "Do you know who this coach belongs to?" It was a banking coach, transferring an undisclosed sum to the small town bank in Awaga. "We're well aware, son. Now please, come on down and let my boys do what they need to do. We can all be on our merry way." The man spoke with a fancy yet homely accent. He was also more well-dressed than the rest of the thugs. The high elves cautiously stepped down off of the coach and kept their hands raised. The well-dressed man motioned another thug to open the coach. The thugs then began to shovel out bags of treasure. There were probably close to 20 large bags. As the pile grew, one of the bags fell down and slid down a hill into a ditch, coming to a halt, not even 10 feet away from Marmoreal. "Damn it!" one of the thugs yelled. The well-dressed man narrowed his eyes because of the outburst. With that distraction, the talkative high elf drew his rapier and placed the tip of the blade at the well-dressed man's throat. "Call off your men this instant," the man began before a loud crack interrupted him. The well-dressed man's 6-shooter was smoking from the barrel as the high elf slumped over and collapsed next to him. Marmoreal then took this chance and darted out to grab the bag of money. He tried to pull the heavy bag, but it was stuck in place. Marmoreal tugged even harder, only to see that another hand was holding onto it. "Hey!" a voice cried. Marmoreal glanced up to see the eyes of another one of the thugs. The man drew his 6-shooter, pulled the hammer back, and... "Whoa now, Almaeus." The well-dressed man's now familiar voice penetrated Marmoreal's ears, despite the shock and adrenaline he was feeling. "What's your name, son?" the man questioned. "Trashwack's Puke Whistle," Marmoreal responded. The man chuckled and pulled his mask down, revealing a fancy handlebar mustache and well-groomed face. "Well, my boy, it would seem you are trying to take something that isn't yours." The man's mustache shifted into a sly smirk. Marmoreal wore a confused look as the man glanced at the scrawny and starving teenager in front of him. His sly smirk gave way to a frown and pitiful eyes. "You've been in a bad way, haven't you, son?" All Marmoreal could muster was a slight nod. The man placed his hand across Marmoreal's back and gestured for Marmoreal to let go of the leather bag. "Luckily, my boy, taking stuff that ain't yours is kind of our specialty. In order to forgive this transgression, however, how would you like a warm meal and a soft bedroll?" The pair began walking back towards the coach. The well-dressed man looked at the one remaining high elf. "Now, unfortunately, I can't offer that to just anybody. Some people just aren't worthy of it. The type of people who serve at the behest of someone with more power and more money than they could ever dream of. No, those people aren't deserving of a warm meal and a soft bedroll." The well-dressed man took his arm away from Marmoreal's shoulder, and in a flash, another crack sounded throughout the night sky. The high elf collapsed. "Come along now, son. You're part of Drakkar Lemoy's gang now." The man looking back at Marmoreal now with an outreached hand. "Welcome to the start of your new beginnings." After a bit of travel on horseback, they arrived at a camp partially hidden within a cave. A small group of people stood and looked at the group of highwaymen riding in, excited and expectant, that suddenly turned to cautious curiosity at the sight of the Earth Genasi seated behind Drakkar. Once Marmoreal got settled in, Drakkar gave his formal introduction and official invitation to the gang. "You're not in any danger from us, of course, but if you wish to stay, you will have to make peace with the fact that you would be considered an outlaw. No more living in a traditional community, just this motley crew of the last group of people who still believe in liberty and autonomy." Lemoy was preaching to Marmoreal at this point, and it all made sense to the young and impressionable Earth Genasi, whose only experience living in a city was an incredibly deficient orphanage from which he just ran away from. "I don't know, it's up to you now, my boy. If you choose to leave, there's a backpack of supplies in my tent that you are more than welcome to—" "No!" Marmoreal interrupted. Sorry, what I mean is no. I think I would rather enjoy staying." Drakkar smiled and slapped Marmoreal on the back. "Well, alright then, son. Glad to hear it. We'll do formal introductions tomorrow, but you've already kinda met Phoenix and Almaeus." After a few days of awkwardness, the gang began to embrace the new addition to the crew. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Marmoreal became increasingly enamored with the outlaw lifestyle. He reveled in the adrenaline of the heists and the shootouts, relishing the feeling of power that came with each successful robbery. However, as time passed, Marmoreal began to see the darker side of Drakkar's nature. He witnessed the senseless violence, and the innocent began to suffer as a result. He saw Drakkar's hypocrisy, preaching loyalty and honor while betraying his own comrades for personal gain. Despite his growing doubts, Marmoreal remained loyal to Drakkar, but as their exploits grew increasingly brazen, Marmoreal's conscience weighed heavy on his shoulders. Finally, the breaking point came, when Drakkar demanded that Marmoreal execute 2 innocent people during a botched robbery. He couldn't go through with it, and let them go while Drakkar wasn't looking. Marmoreal could no longer ignore the blood on his mentor's hands, nor the guilt gnawing at his own soul. In a moment of clarity back at camp, Marmoreal made the decision to leave Drakkar's group, to put an end to this cycle of violence and betrayal. As they stood face to face, Marmoreal's hand trembled with the weight of his decision. I just can't do it anymore, Drake," he said, his voice steady but distraught. "I can't follow you down this path any longer. You've become everything you hated." Drakkar's eyes narrowed, a flicker of recognition crossing his weathered features. "Nothing but a damned coward like the rest of those city-slicking bastards, huh?" he sneered. "Go on then! Leave, why don't you?" Drake shouted and looked away from Marmoreal before hearing the sound of a hammer of a 6-shooter cocking back. Marmoreal shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "No, Drakkar, I'm not running. I feel I have to put an end to your madness. Really, after everything I've done for you, after all we've been through, Phoenix and Almaeus and Maurice, I loved each and every one of those boys, and now they're gone, and you think I wanted that?" Drake was getting more and more rabid as he continued to preach. "I loved Phoenix. He was practically my brother, and the way he went was unfortunate, but you, Marmoreal, you would really leave. It was your fault that Phoenix and Almaeus died, you son of a..." Marmoreal snapped. "You and your unrelenting desire for wealth has corrupted you. This," Marmoreal motioned to the even more run-down and less populated camp that surrounded the two, "this ain't freedom. This is just chaos, violent and bloody and unwarranted pandemonium." "Well, if that's how you feel," Drakkar whipped around and pulled out his 6-shooter, but then a loud crack. The bullet streaked through the air and through the eye of Drakkar Lemoy. And with that, a single shot echoing through the cavern as the truth of his words rang out in the vast expanse of Fways. And in that moment, amidst the swirling dust and fading echoes of gunfire, Marmoreal Marshall stepped out of the shadows of his mentor's legacy, forging his own path towards redemption.